Why don't you just go back to Africa? The words didn't boom, they sliced. In the sudden silence of the hearing room, every breath stalled, every eye shifted. Kash Patel didn't flinch when he said it. He smirked. Denzel Washington, seated across from him, didn't move either. No blink, no reaction. But something in the room cracked. The insult was clear, the intent was worse, and the air shifted, not with noise but with gravity. Because what had just happened wasn't political, it was personal, and the entire country would feel it. The setting was a polished congressional hearing, filled with the scent of fresh wood and stale ambition. Suits rustled, aides tapped nervously on tablets, and cameras silently whirred in corners. At the center were two men who could not be more different. Kash Patel, former Trump aide, political operator, sharp-tongued, and unapologetically provocative. Across from him, Denzel Washington, an actor by trade, but on this day something far greater. A man with purpose, with calm, with depth that didn't need raising voices. He hadn't come to entertain, he had come to testify, and Patel's first move was to try and strip that dignity from him with one poisonous sentence, but Patel didn't stop there. "We're here to talk about law, not lighting design," he scoffed, turning to the room as if auditioning for a crueler role. "Remind me, Mr. Washington, when you're not playing a cop in Hollywood, what exactly are your legal qualifications?" The words were daggers meant to provoke. A few aides chuckled nervously. One pen hit the ground, but Denzel didn't react. Not yet. Patel pushed harder, each sentence dripping with performative arrogance. "Tell me, do you fight harder for the Constitution or your Instagram metrics?" It wasn't questioning, it was performance. It was bait. He wanted the clip, the outrage. But Denzel wasn't there to give him a soundbite. He was there for something bigger. Denzel's silence stretched like a drawn bow. He didn't reach for water. He didn't blink. He let the insult settle, breathe, and become real to everyone in that chamber. And then slowly he leaned forward. His voice didn't rise, but the weight of his words did. "Mr. Patel," he began, folding his hands, "I understand your confusion. It's difficult to recognize integrity when you've never had to live by it." A low murmur rose in the gallery. The energy changed. Not explosive, but irreversible. Denzel spoke like a man used to rooms doubting him, used to silence as resistance, and that silence was now his ally. "If you're curious about my background," Denzel continued, eyes locked onto Patel, "let me fill in the parts your researchers skipped." He detailed his degrees, not just in theater, but criminal justice. He spoke of time spent not on red carpets, but in courtrooms, sitting beside boys the system forgot, mothers torn by laws made in rooms like this one. He didn't shout, he described. The weight landed harder that way. "While you were shaking hands in fundraising galas," he said, "I was sitting with kids facing 20 years for things others walked away from with a fine." The room, once cool and indifferent, started to feel smaller, closer, real. Denzel moved from biography to indictment, but with surgical calm. "You built a resume with talking points," he said. "I built mine with scars." There was no applause, not yet, but the stillness told you everything. He pointed to the disparity in justice, in sentences, in expectations. 15 years for weed, he said, while millionaires walk for fraud. He didn't speak of law like theory, he spoke of law like a battlefield. Patel shifted. The smirk thinned. "You think that makes me anti-law?" Denzel asked. "Number, it makes me pro-justice, and there's a difference." It wasn't loud, but it was thunder. He didn't let the shift slip away. Denzel leaned into Patel's tactics. "Let's talk qualifications," he said, "since you questioned mine." He described cases, motions, legislation, not from a stage, but from lived experience. "When was the last time you cross-examined a witness who had everything to lose?" he asked. "Not on TV, in court." That question didn't need an answer. Everyone already knew it. "This isn't a performance," he added. "But if it were, Mr. Patel, you'd be losing the audience." Laughter didn't come, but gravity did, and it weighed heavy, especially on the man who thought he controlled the room. Trying to claw back ground, Patel pulled out the academic playbook. "Since you love justice so much," he said smugly, "explain Marbury versus Madison and its relevance to modern executive power." It was a trap, dense, formal, designed to trip someone who didn't belong, but Denzel didn't blink. 1803, he began. Chief Justice Marshall establishes judicial review, the power to strike down unconstitutional laws. A flicker crossed Patel's face. Denzel kept going. He earned it. And then Denzel delivered the line, "You brought it up to trap me." But this isn't law school, it's life. And here, knowing the law isn't enough. You have to live by it. The room tilted. By now, the spectators weren't just watching, they were invested. Patel leaned back, papers untouched, confidence slipping. "I've been underestimated my entire life," Denzel said quietly, "because of where I come from, how I speak, what I look like." His voice didn't tremble, it carried. "But what you tried to weaponize against me, my story, my presence, is exactly why I belong in this chair." You could hear chairs shift, aides scribbling faster. The balance was gone, and Patel knew it. Desperate, Patel lashed out one last time. "You're not in court. You're not trying a case. You're performing." But no one believed him anymore. Denzel didn't smirk. He turned to the crowd. "See that?" he asked. When the truth doesn't work, he changes the subject. When the room shifts, he rewrites the rules. Then he turned back to Patel. "I didn't come here to perform. I came here because people like me rarely get invited to rooms like this. And when we do, we don't whisper." The crowd leaned in. Denzel didn't miss a beat. "You want real issues?" Denzel said. "Let's talk about neighborhoods defunded and discarded, about a healthcare system that punishes the poor, about justice that bends for the rich and breaks on the backs of the voiceless." He didn't yell, but his words reached the farthest corners of the room. "You question my qualifications?" he asked. "Then ask who still shows up when the cameras are off." And in that moment, the cameras might as well have shut off, because everyone was watching with their hearts now, not their lenses. Denzel drew breath, looked directly at Patel. "You've spent your life performing for power," he said. "I've spent mine standing beside those it stepped on." He listed no names, no hashtags, just truths. "You brought papers, I brought people." The applause started softly, real, earned. Patel tried to interrupt again. Denzel raised one hand, not to silence, but to complete his thought. "You asked why I'm here," he said, stepping forward, his voice low. "Because people like me weren't allowed in rooms like this, but now we are, and we don't forget." Then the final blow, spoken not with anger but purpose. "You told me to go back to Africa," Denzel said quietly. The room froze. "Let me remind you, lions don't live in cages because they're weak. They live in cages because they scare the people who forgot the wild still has rules." And that was it. The moment cracked. The room stood, not for theater, not for Denzel the actor, but for Denzel the force. He walked back to his seat without fanfare. Patel sat frozen, words gone, posture small, and Denzel, he didn't smile, he just stood tall. "Truth doesn't shout," he said, just loud enough. "It stands." The noise in the room didn't matter. The headlines that would follow didn't matter. What mattered was that millions watching would remember this, that calm is stronger than cruelty and dignity louder than insult. And today, truth stood, and the room listened.